Okay, I know what you're probably thinking. What does John Cassavetes have to do with Robert Eggers? On the surface, nothing. One is known for shaky handhelds and raw emotional chaos. The other for perfectly composed frames, ancient accents, and obsessive historical accuracy. But trust me, behind a rare Cassavetes interview for Criterion Collections lies what could have been Robert Eggers' Nosferatu masterpiece. In fact, Eggers himself did describe Nosferatu as a melodrama in an interview with Vulture, which honestly kind of explains a lot, but I'll come back to it later. And hey, if you haven't watched Nosferatu yet, this video might not be for you, because this discussion contains major spoilers. First things first, let's try to define what melodrama is. The term was first used in English in 1784 and came from the French word mélodrame, that means basically the drama of music. And that's important because at its origin, melodrama was musical. Melodrama is related with early productions of the Victorian theatre era that were deeply entangled with opera, leaning hard into sentiment, swirling emotion, and the kind of expressive excess that was meant to be felt as much as watched. Accordingly, with Peter Brook's melodrama particular formula is filled with a distinctive admixture of tragedy, comedy, pantomime, and spectacle, accompanied by music and intended for a popular audience, people most prominently by villains and victim heroes, propelled by pathos and suspense, coincidence and fate. And it was also pretty serious. After the Enlightenment and the erosion of religious and aristocratic authority, melodrama gave voice to the desire for clear moral legibility. Right and wrong, good and evil, innocence and guilt, all played out in heightening emotional tones. Accordingly, with Christine Glenhill, from the 18th century on, alongside Shakespeare and neoclassical tragedies, London's patent theatres staged new forms of sentimental drama that sought to restore a modal economy suited to mercantile enterprise, turning on individual energy, capital accumulation, social respectability, and family stability. These goals merged social, personal, and moral conflict in a way that would eventually support melodrama. Such pressure cooker for psychic tension became the perfect route for the Gothic arts to grow. If the 18th century sentimental drama found in the private bourgeois family a source of moral and social order, the family itself came under increasing social pressure. With industrialization in urban living, it was both separate from productive and communal relationships, and psychology central to the reproduction and maintenance of individual well-being. In retrieving the trappings of medieval demonology, the Gothic opened up a psychosexual dynamic, recasting the moral tenets of sentimental fiction's private conscience as the emotional and moral sensations of publicly broken taboos. Moreover, it melted elite with popular traditions, spectacle with the domestic, facilitating the intersection of cultural boundaries important to melodrama. And that's where Eggers' Nosferatu comes in, with his compelling version of Ellen at the center, a modern and misunderstood woman who tries to overcome childhood trauma while fighting for her safety in the hands of men who mistake dominance for care. It's a story almost tailor-made for a melodramatic and gothic film. Here's what Robert Eggers said in his interview for Vulture, which composes a lot about his connection with John Cassavetes, in my opinion. As you know, it is a melodrama. And in melodrama, the emotional stakes are incredibly high. People often call the performances in the movie stylized, but I think the only thing that is intentionally stylized is the compositions, which are very fairy tale-like and very precise. But you know, and maybe I didn't succeed it, the intention was for the performance to be naturalistic within the context of manners and customs and a way of holding yourself and conducting yourself that is of the time period, much more mannered, more artificial and rigid in how we will conduct ourselves in our everyday life. Although the idea is very ambitious, the overall execution might not have succeeded, and maybe even Eggers recognizes it. My guess is that he maybe got in a wrong foot because of his particular style of directing. Let me explain. But before I do that, if you are enjoying watching this video, consider hitting the like button and subscribing to this channel. This is only my second video, I'm still learning how to do this, but I'm already enjoying it so much. So yeah, I appreciate your kind support. Perhaps we all can agree that the most textbook example of a female-centric melodrama, where a woman behaves strangely, obsessed, unraveling, is A Woman Under the Influence. If you never watched the film, I promise I won't give you any spoilers, okay? Jenna Rollins stars as Mabel Longhetti, a housewife spiraling under the crushing weight of domestic expectations and untreated mental illness. Her husband, Nick, played by Peter Falk, loves her, but also doesn't know how to deal with her mental illness. So instead, he tries to fix her, contain her, normalize her, which of course only makes things worse. Mabel is too much. She feels everything at once, says the wrong things at the wrong time, makes everyone uncomfortable in their skin.
Mabel, we're trying to help you.
Is that what you're trying to do?
Yes.
Oh, is that what you're trying to do?
We are trying to
help you.
Ellen Herder might not be mentally ill like Mabel, but she shares that same deep, unnervous sensibility of feeling like anyone understands her. So when her husband is asked to leave for work, she begs him not to go, because she's the only one who can feel the monster's existence. So when Orloak's presence intensifies, Ellen begins to suffer from what it seems like she's being possessed by some evil force. That level of emotional volatility mirrors Mabel's spiraling crisis in A Woman Under the Influence, where emotions don't rise gradually, but come violently. John Cassavetes was undeniably one-of-a-kind actor, writer, and director. Born in New York in 1929, he helped to lay the foundation for what we now call American independent cinema. He made messy and emotional films that felt less like performances and more like life unfolding in real time. And we would be surprised to know that most of his genius came from his writing.
There is one question I kept asking myself when I saw a film at Cannes, is how much of the film was written and how much was improvised, on the set. One really gets the feeling that filmmaking for you is more producing an event than reproducing one. You see what I mean?
No,
I mean,
I'm
creating a situation.
I'm so skilled that you don't see that. No, it's all written.
Everything is written, and all the dialogue has been written before. That's unbelievable.
Yes, but it wouldn't make any difference if it wasn't, because what we're really doing is dealing with thoughts and with feelings. And the hope is that the actors can feel that the material is not written. And when they do, then they can take their own time, which makes it appear to be improvised. They can do it with enough skill that it appears to be their own, rather than the author's, which is the hope.
Interestingly, Cassavetes only took a crash course in screenwriting with the novelist Edward McSorley in 1953. He had never written a script before that, which shows how much of his brilliance came from his deep observation of the human condition in everyday life. His writing feels lived in, not written, as if someone might actually say it in a moment they didn't know anyone was listening. In one interview published in the Daily Californian in May 1975, he says, "I have a funny view on writing for films. It keeps changing, but my current view on writing for films is that dialogue should be tied up so heavily with the incident that you don't feel dialogue or you don't feel talk. Rather, you feel the emotions of the people." That intentional and true connection of the desires portrayed in his characters was crucial for him, almost as if he had a view that films should make you feel something rather than look in a certain way. And to produce such an event, as the interviewer beautifully put it, was not an easy job. He understood how hard it was for the actors to trust the director, since
there are things where actors cannot trust directors because they've been double-crossed many times by directors, and your performance doesn't stay the same performance, the same character. It's altered to fit the story. Mm-hmm. I think it's more difficult to get people to trust you, that you will see what they are doing. You will let them be what they are, what they convince themselves that they are. Otherwise, it becomes quite technical for them, and they just say their lines. But to reveal themselves and let qualities that they wouldn't want to be seen come out is difficult and needs a great deal of trust between us.
So instead of imposing a structure to fit the story, he approached both the screenwriting and directing as a way to get the audience to feel what they want to evoke in the actors. John Cassavetes, in fact, had a very clear vision about how actors should behave in the set to let the magic happen. While directing a movie, he didn't encourage his actors to mingle off camera. Although it might seem extreme, that offered the actor space to focus on the part without worrying about connecting with their peers on set.
And it takes a tremendous amount of concentration. So I won't let people talk socially. They have no life outside of the life while they're working. Mm-hmm. After they're working, they can do whatever the hell they please. I don't want a family situation. I don't want two tight-knit a situation. I want them to be real. I want them to go live their life as they would live it. But while they're working, if we're working only 4 hours or 5 hours, I want a full concentration. So it is a series of contradictions, and those series of contradictions, in order to play them, the actors themselves are trying to either go along with what they're doing, and in doing that, they begin to have their own language. And the language is written, but their gestures are not written. Their feelings are not written.
Cassavetes understood how filmmaking is not an exact science, that in order to bring life to the script, he needed to make space for the actors to figure out their own language to bring life to the scene. And sometimes you can also feel like he felt almost responsible for the performance of the actors as well.
From them, because I worry that when the picture comes out that they won't be fulfilled.
I don't know about Robert Eggers' approach in that respect, but as I said before, it's clear that these two directors have a very different approach on filmmaking. While Eggers seems primarily focused on getting the perfect technical aspects to make it work, Cassavetes prioritized script and performance before considering set and production design.
With Jenna, always, she'll read a completed script and say, I hate that woman. Hate her, she's not. What does she wear? And I said, I mean, what does she wear? I don't give a damn at this stage what she wears, you know. She said, well, it's very important to me. I said, well, you're shallow and superficial, for Christ's sake, so haven't thought about it. And then I go and start to think about it. And in essence, what Jenna wore in the thing with the pink socks and her shoes and her mini skirts and a nice car, a beautiful kitchen, and nothing else.
But after some consideration, he recognizes that thinking about production design was not something shallow or trivial. It mattered for the natural acting he wanted, making the actors also feel their characters were real people.
And so we could alter the reality without ever having to justify what it was, and I could believe it. You know, we talked about it, and nope. Absolutely nothing on the walls. I don't want anything on the walls. He said, well, no. And then he comes and puts his additions. He said, no, this man plays softball, and he's an athletic man. He would play this, and he said, these awards are nice, and occasionally he'd put these little trophies that the man would have on the fireplace, and nothing really to call attention to itself. But
that open conversation between actors and crew members doesn't seem to happen in Robert Eggers' productions. In fact, since its beginning, the script hasn't changed much in 9 years. In this conversation with Willem Dafoe, we see how strict his approach to directing actors can be.
Which is, and I remember in The Lighthouse, a lot of people were like, we have that one long speech that I have that's a curse. And people were like, you didn't blink, man. Wow, you didn't blink. And it's like, yeah, I wasn't, Robert told me not to blink, so I can get it together and not blink I had stuff to do. I had a kind of complicated picture to paint with those words, with those beautiful words. So no reason I had to blink, but that's a good example. That was one technical thing that I take on, and it makes a stronger commitment to what you're doing.
And okay, every director has a different way of shooting films and directing actors, but sometimes that same rehearsal can become mechanical. As Ellen Meyer and David Meyer beautifully put it, melodramatic stage acting necessarily expects and demands the use of the audible, clear, expressive voice. It demands the capacity to convey text, play scripts intelligently, and with appropriate emotion. Melodramatic texts are among the most demanding for stage actors, who must convey a range of emotions without suggesting that the written rhetoric may appear excessive, beyond the vocabulary and the emotion of everyday speech. Cassavetes had a unique way of filming. He'd bring everyone together, let the actors play, and capture the scene fast, almost like shooting a documentary, letting real moments happen naturally. Now, I'm not saying that only filming this way, just following the actors and not having any mise-en-scène at all, works for every dramatic scene. That would be absurd. But too much technical precision can sometimes hurt the actor's performance. When I watch Lily Rose Depp as Ellen, I often feel like she's not fully immersed in the role. She seems more focused on hitting her marks than on embodying the characters in the struggles. This really shows when you compare two scenes where the actors should both be feeling the same emotion, fear. I don't believe Lily is genuinely afraid of Orloak's presence, at least not in the same visceral way we see in Thomas Hutter, played brilliantly by Nicholas Hoult. To call Helen Day Meyer and David Meyer again, when gestures are divorced from an emotional context, when they are used heartlessly and excessively, when the same gestures is used repeatedly, when the use of gestures delay actions that the drama demands, they are devoid of meaning and are visibly ridiculous. Cassavetes knew that melodrama lives and breathes inside the tension between what the character says and what they're actually feeling, and how they relate to one another in the scene. It's a genre of glances, interruptions, contradiction. It's chaotic, human, and uncomfortable. It's Mabel yelling about spaghetti while her marriage collapses around her. It's the refusal to flatten emotions into plot. So maybe what Eggers needed wasn't more detail, but more mess. Because no matter how many rats you release on set, no matter how faithfully you recreate the 17th century, if we can't feel the monster aching beneath the skin, if we can't believe in the haunted gaze of the girl at the center of it all, then all we are left with are beautiful surfaces. And horror, like melodrama, has never really been about the surface. It's about seeking our most profound, vulnerable, and horrific parts, even the unraveling sexual desire for its predator. It's traumatic, uncomfortable, unsettling. And you can really feel that lack of interiority in Lily Rose Depp's performance during what should be the film's most vulnerable moments, when Ellen first speaks about her childhood trauma and Orloak's abuse to Von Franz. What should have been a central, emotionally shattering scene feels like just another story she told us before. And it's a shame because Eggers was right about these two characters. Von Franz might be the only person who truly understands Ellen Hutter's struggle. He recognized her bravery without judgment. Her confession of her most painful trauma to him, though, should have broken our hearts apart. But instead, it just feels like we're watching two actors reading lines. Maybe he didn't succeed of his ambitious desire to portray naturalistic acting in line with the social manners of the era. You can see that intention in the first encounter between Orloak and Ellen. Even though there's so much at risk, there's so much desire, fear, and rage simmering beneath the surface, the way they speak to each other is overly composed, almost restrained. The problem is, if you haven't built an emotional connection between the characters earlier, how do you want the climax to land? The emotions won't flow through to the audience, even though you have every technical and editing working in your favor. The emotional impact of A Woman Under the Influence climax scene is remarkable and powerful, mainly because John Cassavetes allowed us to witness the deep passion Mabel and Nick share in previous scenes. We come to understand both of their struggles because we see how deeply in love they are, despite the conflict they face within their family and society. So when the crisis comes, we feel for both of them. We empathize, because from the beginning, we were prepared to do so by the collaboration of the script, the actor's performance, and the director's vision for the emotional standpoint of the film. In Nosferatu, we don't get the same build-up with Ellen and Thomas. We are told that they are in love with each other, but we don't feel it. Their scenes together are hollow, superficial, very different, for example, from one particular scene between Frederick and Anna Harding, where they open up to each other about Ellen's crisis. In that moment, brief as it is, feels far more emotionally real than anything between Thomas and Ellen. I don't know about you, but for me, that single scene made Anna's death hit harder than all of Ellen's suffering combined, and I'd love to hear what you think about it in the comments below. Another aspect that Eggers might have gone too far in his Nosferatu version might be the characterization of Orloak. While historically faithful to a time where people actually believed in vampires, his portrayal creates a sense of emotional detachment from Orloak, which actually makes the horror less scary at some point. Sure, the deep voice is initially very unsettling, but the real horror in that scene, I think, comes from Nicholas Hoult's remarkable performance and of the suspense build-up of meeting the vampire for the first time. But as the film progresses, Orloak's voice just becomes distracting.
You are not of humankind.
You are a villain to speak, sir.
I am an appetite.
The deep tone of voice, the difficulty breathing, they just pull us away rather than draw us in. Don't get me wrong, I love all the behind-the-scenes stuff. Robert Eggers clearly pours his heart into researching and directing his films. That's what makes them special. He digs up forgotten history from old books that obviously none of us will ever read and translates it to modern audiences. And he's probably the only director today who does this with such passion. Even though every detail in his movies is perfect, with research teams dedicated to sourcing the most accurate references for costumes, art direction, set dressing, hair, makeup, color palette, lighting, and texture, his films can still feel more like a museum exhibit than a real story. Even the actors can seem like a part of the display, showing off Eggers' perfectionism rather than feeling like real people. That stubborn focus on style over substance becomes really obvious in the final scene, where Robert Eggers' characters seem to transform into puppets, serving the director's ego. After discovering the bodies of Ellen and Orloak lying dead in bed, Professor Von Franz, who never cared about beauty, aesthetic, or emotions before, suddenly throws flowers over the bed, composing a beautifully well-framed last shot for the film. But what would I know about directing movies anyways? Besides all of that, I can still connect with Robert Eggers' intentions to modernize Murnau's version of Dracula. For me, the film is absolutely perfect in its opening scene, where Thomas arrives at the castle and meets Orloak for the first time. The editing of his confused, sleepwalking scenes creates perfect unease. In that moment, we feel Eggers' deep admiration for Murnau's Nosferatu, a film that would later inspire him to pursue a career in filmmaker. It's personal, it's a tribute, and it's a masterpiece. I also love the way he gives Ellen the courage to confront the injustice of being treated like an animal by her husband's friend, Friedrich Harden. I love that Anna, played by Emma Corrin, is a pregnant mother, and how Eggers updates the tension between Anna and Ellen to reflect the struggle of women navigating their roles in society at the time. I appreciate his forgiving approach to Ellen's so-called hysteria and how her sexual repression creates a conflicted dynamic between her and her husband. But at the same time, I wish we had seen more madness, more chaos in these characters, not just stylized for the screen, but deeply felt it with the actors. I understand how difficult it must be for a director like Eggers, who tends to exceed directing cold and distant characters, to shift his approach so drastically. Still, moves are built on shared emotions between the actors and the audience. John Cassavetes got it right. He made movie sets where actors felt safe to show real, messy human emotions, the kind we usually hide. In his films, you don't just watch people struggle, you feel like you're right there with them. He didn't make movies to check boxes or follow formulas. For him, filmmaking was about capturing the real moments as they happened. Even while writing and directing, he always focused on the heart of the story, what truly mattered emotionally and psychologically. And that's what makes a film a masterpiece, when you truly connect with the characters beside their flaws, when it stays with you because its emotion leaves something you always remember.